Operation Epic Fury.
Hold on, because the real bombshell right now is not just that President Trump locked in a deal that blocks Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, is that the Trump administration appears to be building something much bigger right in front of us. A new Middle East economic order built on shipping security, Gulf cooperation, and investment instead of endless American blood and treasure. Oil is dropping. The Strait of Hormuz is reopening. Regional money is moving. The same media that spent years cheering chaos is now parroting foreign propaganda because they can't stand to admit Trump may have just changed the game again. You see, Vice President JD Vance laid it out plain. From day one, President Trump's position was non-negotiable. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. That's the entry ticket. But that's not the end point. The bigger play is what comes after. Vance says the Strait of Hormuz is open immediately, and markets are already responding with lower oil and gas prices. Senator Rand Paul backing the peace push because Americans have paid the cost of this conflict at the pump, the grocery store, and on the farm through fertilizer prices. And here's where the story gets even bigger. The administration's openly talking about a future where if Iran behaves like a normal country, Gulf Arab states, not American taxpayers, could invest in the region and help transform it. That means the Trump administration is trying to turn a military and diplomatic win into an economic architecture. Not forever war, not blank checks, America first, peace through prosperity. And speaking of solutions that people used to mock until the results became too obvious to ignore, this next message hits close to home. Now, you've probably seen the clip, Joe Rogan with Mel Gibson talking about people close to them facing serious health struggles and how red light-based therapies help spark dramatic turnarounds. Rogan talks about what happens at the cellular level. Gibson says it plainly. This stuff works, and that got my attention. In my own life, I watched something similar with my wife, who dealt with constant discomfort and anxiety for far too long. Then we discovered red light therapy, and it changed our perspective fast. And that's why I want you to check out Jonathan Otto's work right here on this channel. I've interviewed him countless times. Absolutely eye-opening interviews. But you can skip right to the end by going to myredlight.com. That's, if you've been curious, you really need to learn more. Go to myredlight.com, use NNN25 for individual items or NNN30 for bundles. Take a serious look for your family today, just like we did. Now back to the story, because what Team Trump is doing in the Middle East is all about results over noise. Now here's the part that the corporate press really does not want viewers to focus on. This deal is being sold less as a one-off diplomatic document and more as the launch pad for an investment zone. Vance made that clear when he said not a single dime comes from the United States, and that any upside for Iran depends entirely on acting like a normal country. Then came another clue. Qatar preparing to invest more than $1 trillion into the United States. That's not random. That's the prosperity phase. And the tweets, they're going to help map out exactly how it's all unfolding. Here's JD Vance laying it out. The president has been clear from day one.
President Vance here to talk a little bit about what is in the Iran deal, the great peace deal that the President of the United States made last night. Number one, what this deal means is that the Straits of Hormuz are open immediately. You're already seeing oil and gas prices come down just over the past 24 hours. Number two, it ensures that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And we have to back up for a second and appreciate that what the president has done is completely decimated Iran's nuclear program. Now, this deal really has two pathways. On the one hand, if the Iranians make the long-term commitments never to rebuild, then they're going to be welcomed into the world economy. If, on the other hand, they try to rebuild that nuclear program, they're never going to have the resources in order to do so. So it's a win-win for the American people. We ensure Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon either way. And now it's really up to the Iranians. Over the next few months, we're going to see if they're serious about dismantling that program for the long term. If they do, the president has said, we want their country to be successful. But what we know is that our country is successful thanks to great presidential leadership and a lot of good decisions. Thank you, guys.
That's the message directly from the White House, laying out the core deal. Iran's nuclear program gets crushed. America gets lower energy costs. Now he goes a step further, explaining how the economic upside for Iran comes from Gulf Arab investments, not U.S. taxpayers.
What we have said is, again, that if the Iranians are behaving like a normal country, and if they make their country investable, then the Gulf Arab states are going to may decide to invest in that country, invest in their infrastructure, invest in their incredible resources. But I think it's important, not a single dime of that money comes from the United States. And in order for Iran to get that benefit, they have to show the Gulf Arab states that they're behaving like a normal country. Again, the whole concept of this deal is that if Iran acts like a normal country, their economic relationship, both with the region, but the world, is going to be totally transformed. The president of the United States doesn't want just a deal on the nuclear as much as that's a win for the American people.
Yeah.
He wants to see a transformed Middle East, which is what this deal will do so long as the Iranians comply. And if they don't, they won't get any of the benefits.
So, no American bailout, no free ride, only benefits if Tehran acts like a normal country. Next, he takes aim at the corporate press for pushing Iran regime propaganda instead of the actual terms.
Really bothers me and frustrates me and is unexpected when the American media literally picks up talking points and propaganda from the RAGC that has no support in the text of the agreement that we've actually negotiated and no basis in reality. This is good for the American people. The Iranians don't get a dime unless they behave and change their behavior. And this means that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, Sean.
When you
That's
say
why
they
we did
don't
this.
get a dime, do they ever get an American dime, a taxpayer dollar?
No. So number one, first of all, they never get a dime of American taxpayer money, ever. Full stop. Not even close.
Okay.
What we have said is there's a lot of economic benefit in the United States relieving a lot of sanctions and welcoming them back into the world economy. There's a lot of benefit there. Not American money, but there's a lot of economic prosperity that can flow from that. What the president said to them is, we want you to be a successful country. But for you to be a successful country, you've got to give up on this threat. You've got to give up on this desire to have a nuclear weapon. And if you do that, the United States is willing to have a much better relationship.
So he calls out the media's lie machine. Iran doesn't get a dime from U.S. taxpayers. And while the press points, Trump points to something voters can actually feel: oil falling fast and gas prices heading down. Here he is at the G7.
Goes fuel, so goes everything. Fuel is dropping. It's now in the 70s per barrel. And I think we'll get it down. When I was in Iowa, and we had great victories in Iowa. And when I left, I noticed in a gas station, $1.85 a gallon. That's where we were. It's a little bit higher generally, but I saw two stations, $1.85, one had $1.91. And, you know, we're going to get around those levels. So very honored.
So Trump tying peace through strength to cheaper fuel, saying oil is back in the 70s and gas could keep dropping. Next to market data backs him up, with crude sliding below $79 a barrel. U.S. oil prices dropped below $79 a barrel, hit the lowest level since March 10th. Look at this. Look at this drop. Exactly as President Trump said would happen. So it's not just talk. The chart shows oil breaking lower in real time. Shifting gears, Trump then turns to Israel and delivers a blunt warning about civilian deaths in the Hezbollah fight. Shots fired, they write. President Trump dunking on Israel for committing war crimes against civilians.
What are the expectations for Israel? Can this deal survive if Israel attacks Lebanon?
It can, and, you know, I consider that the minor war. Iran's a big one, but we have that a little pinprick out there that constantly rears its head, and that's Hezbollah. And, you know, I was very responsible for Syria, and the man that's running Syria now is a person that I put there along with President Erdogan and some others. He's done an amazing job of pulling it together. He's not a Boy Scout, but he's done an amazing job of pulling it together. And he is very good with Hezbollah, does not like them. And I'll tell you what, Israel's fighting Hezbollah too long and too many people are being killed. And you don't have to knock down an apartment house every time you're looking for somebody, because there are a lot of people in those apartment houses, and they're not all Hezbollah, that I can tell you. And I suggested to Israel to let Syria take care of Hezbollah. Because to be honest with you, I think they do a better job of doing it.
So after the oil drop, the focus moves back to the battlefield. Trump's not mincing words with Israel. Next, more of that rebuke. He says Syria could handle Hezbollah better than endless apartment block strikes.
Fighting Hezbollah too long, and too many people are being killed. And you don't have to knock down an apartment house every time you're looking for somebody, because there are a lot of people in those apartment houses, and they're not all Hezbollah, that I can tell you. And I suggested to Israel to let Syria take care of Hezbollah. Because to be honest with you, I think they do a better job of doing it. And I didn't like Syria. I didn't like where 2 hours before we're signing the agreement that there was an attack in Lebanon, in Beirut. It wasn't like in the southern side, and it was in Beirut. I did not like that. I let them know that. I didn't like it, not at all. But I think that Syria, he's pulled that country together amazingly quickly. He's very capable, and he's been very good for me. He's protected everything that I've asked for. He's done. And if Israel can't do the job without killing everyone else, he'll do the job. Syria will do the job.
So Trump making clear the support for Israel is not a blank check for bad strategy or civilian carnage, but he also reminds the world who Israel's strongest backer really is, and says no president has done more than he has.
Relationship. Without us, without the United States, there would be no Israel. Without me, there would be no Israel, because no other president was willing to do what I did. I've had a great relationship with Bibi, but now Bibi has to.
So, even while dressing down Netanyahu, Trump is underscoring American leverage and his own record with Israel. Next, he brings it back to the bottom line on Iran with a crystal clear warning: no nukes or hell rains down.
The one thing that's happening that's of note, frankly, the only thing that really matters to me, is Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And it says it loud and clear. They're not going to develop it, they're not going to buy it, and they're not going to do anything with it. And if they do, they suffer unbelievable consequences. Not just a little bit like, I won't even tell you the consequences, but the consequences are the ultimate consequences. And with that being said, I hope we have a very good relationship. But the biggest thing is they will not have a nuclear weapon. And that's the reason I got in, and that's the reason I agreed to sign. And we originally had, Marco was with me, and they originally wrote that we will not develop a nuclear weapon. I said, no, you're not going to develop it, you're not going to buy either. So we have, that took another couple of days of time. Everything was, it's ridiculous, but so we have, they will not develop, purchase, buy, or any other thing. They're not going to acquire a nuclear weapon. If they do, all hell will rain down on them. And they're not going to do that, Now, you talk about regime change. I never cared about regime change. It's never a part, but I guess you have regime change, because you know better than anybody. The first group, they're all dead. The second group, they're dead. A part of the third group is gone. And we're dealing with people that I think are very rational people. I mean, they were nice to deal with. They were strong people, smart people. I think actually they're smarter than the first and second group. But they're not radicalized, and they're, looking to help their country. So, again, I don't believe the regime change. I've watched regime changes for years. They never work. It has to just happen. I can tell you, this is a country where the Emir is so respected, and the Prime Minister is so respected by the people, and that's the way a country should run. It should run out of respect, not of fear. As you know, at least 42,000 protesters were killed in Iran. They were protesting. The wrestler, they had the big event at the White House the other day, the UFC, and they were all talking about he was a great fighter. And he was hung with his two friends because he spoke something about their regime. It's tough stuff. So,
Trump slamming the door on any Iranian path to the bomb spelled out the consequences. Now watch, the hardline is pairing with big money. He says Qatar is set to pour more than $1 trillion into the U.S.
Critical time, but I think you took the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you, too. Qatar is going to be investing much more than $1 trillion in the United States. We have over 18. It's going to be 19.4 or so when it figures out. But we set a record. There's never been anything like it. No country in history has had that kind of investment. We'll be having almost 19.2 trillion dollars invested in the United States. The record was 10 years ago from another country when it was hot. But we have the hottest country in the world right now. But Qatar's been a great investor. We really rekindled ourselves when I met with you last year, a year ago, probably 13, 14 months. That was a good trip. And
it was May,
so
last May, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, a year, yeah.
That was a great trip, and we established. We've been friends for a long time. We've known each other for a long time. But Qatar is investing tremendous amounts of money in our country, and we appreciate that.
So while the media swore the Middle East was turning on Trump, he's announcing massive Qatari investment and bragging about factories coming back next. Vance explains the bigger play Gulf Arab partners aligning with the U.S. like never before.
I think what is most interesting about the last year and a half, the underreported part of the Trump administration's policy in the Middle East, is that all of these Gulf Arab coalition partners are coming together with the United States. Israel is obviously very involved, and they're actually pushing back together. You see the United States working with our Gulf Arab partners in a way you've never seen before in the history of this country. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've gotten to the point where we have a very good peace deal that's on the table that we're ready to sign, is because you see for the first time the Gulf Coast countries pushing back against Iran, uniting under the president's leadership, and actually doing something different for a change.
So the investment pitch wasn't happening in a vacuum. It fits the new regional bloc Vance says Trump has built against Iran. Now Rand Paul, who's no rubber stamp, backs the peace push and tells naysayers to stand down.
Senator, what you do know from what we all know right now, are you happy about the deal?
I think the sooner the war's over, the better. The better for the American consumer, the better for the American farmer with fertilizer prices. So I'm in favor of Trump's peace negotiations. And really the initial that we're hearing is that the trade is that we will discontinue our blockade and that the Iranians will allow ships to go through the strait. So I think opening the strait is a great beginning. I'm hopeful that in the second phase of this, that they will agree to exit the enriched uranium from the country, and I think that could be done in exchange for normalizing trade with Iran and the rest of the world, and I think that's worth the trade. If they're willing to export that enriched uranium and no longer enriched uranium, by all means you need to offer something, and that offer should be normalization of trade and removal of sanctions.
Their record on keeping deals is horrendous. If they don't keep to the letter of this deal, whatever it turns out to be, do we still have to hold on to that military option?
Well, one of the trades is very easy to verify, and that's the removal of the enriched uranium. So really, if the deal is you remove the enriched uranium to another country and then we release the sanctions, that's completely verifiable. They've seen the military option. So the military option, while I'm not a big fan of war, has probably changed their perspective with regard to diplomacy. So I think they actually can get the deal of having the enriched uranium exported from the country. And it's very easy to verify because we will probably have to help them dig it out. It's under, as the president said, a mountain of granite. But I commend the president for pursuing these peace negotiations, and the naysayers need to actually see what's going on before they ruin the negotiations.
I think that would be smart of them to do so. They've defied what is smart, though, in the past.
So after Vance and Rand Paul made the case for peace through strength, the other side is finally admitting reality. Next, Iran's foreign minister says the war with the United States is over. Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi says war with the United States is over. So what does this really mean? It means that President Trump is trying to convert hard power into durable order. First, crush Iran's path to a bomb. Second, reopen global shipping lanes. Third, bring Gulf partners together under American leadership. Fourth, redirect the conversation away from missiles and towards capital, trade, and infrastructure. And that's why Vance is hammering the text of the agreement and torching media outlets for repeated regime propaganda. The battlefield has changed. The left wants Americans staring only at the old war model. Trump's presenting a new one. No U.S. taxpayer handouts. No Iranian nukes. No surrender. In a Middle East where compliance opens the door to prosperity, while defiance brings crushing consequences. And that is why this matters so much. President Trump is not just ending a dangerous chapter with strength, he's trying to write the next chapter on America's terms. Lower oil, open sea lanes, no nuclear Iran, Gulf partners stepping up, massive investment flowing into the United States. At the same time, Trump is showing every player in the region, including Israel, that America leads from principle and power, not blind obedience and not endless war. That's what real leadership looks like. The media can sneer, Democrats can panic, and the foreign policy establishment can melt down all at once. But results are results, and the American people can see them. If you think peace, strength, and prosperity beats forever wars and taxpayer giveaways, share this report right now. Subscribe to the channel and drop your answer. Do you support President Trump's plan to use economic power, not American cash, to reshape the Middle East? Yes or no? Let's have a conversation. And I want to make sure you get the news that you depend on right here from the Next News Network. Thousands of patriots have already texted the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. They're getting the notifications that YouTube never sends directly from me. I want to make sure you stay on the inside track. And I also want to make sure you're celebrating all of these wins. Are you tired of winning yet? Well, we have a big win here as America 250 becomes ever closer. Make sure you go to the merch shelf below this video or simply go to shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.